Good evening. Welcome to another Wednesday night panel discussion here at Poplar Hill Baptist Church. We're excited that you decided to join us tonight in lieu of our Bible study. However, we are celebrating 138 years here at Poplar Hill Baptist Church, and we're excited again for what God has already done, how he's accomplished so many great things for us here in the city of Beaufort. And so we welcome you tonight. Tonight, our whole emphasis is on voter education, understanding the vote, understanding the candidates, and finding out where you fit in as a registered voter who goes out to make a difference in our community. And we just congratulate all of our candidates tonight that are here with us, the two that are here with us tonight, and our chief investigator. We have Karen Green, who is here with us, who's running for Superior Court. We also have Erica Dove, who's also running for state court judge here in Gwinnett County. And we've got some other guests that may come in and ask some questions, but tonight, again, we want you to know that this is all done on behalf of you being informed, being aware, and being engaged. So tonight, God bless you for being here again. We are celebrating 138 years at Poplar Hill Baptist Church here in Beaufort, Georgia. One of our great events will be taking place on the 25th, September 25th, our annual golf tournament. We invite you to come to that, but also tune in and come be a part of our 138th celebration here on the fourth Sunday in September. Tonight, my co-host is none other than Mr. C.J. Stiff, who's an aspiring attorney as well as wants to go to Howard University, but also is a student over at GCC, and we just welcome him tonight. So I'm going to pause for a minute, let him say hello, and then we'll get right into our questions and entertaining our guest tonight. C.J. Stiff.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I look forward to asking a few questions tonight.
Thank you. So with that being said, I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourself, say something that you think would be interesting. I think one of the big things that candidates should do is always have an opening statement that will make us remember you. So I'll begin with Mr. Travis Gatson, since he's the first male there. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for inviting me here. This is a second home. I love this church here. My name is Chief Travis Gatson. I'm the Chief Investigator for the Gwinnett County Solicitor's Office. I work underneath the Honorable Brian Whiteside, who is our Solicitor General. And I'm also honored to be the spouse of the District Attorney, Patsy Austin Gatson. I am not running for any election, but it seems like I'm all around it. But my Solicitor General, Brian Whiteside, he is running for re-election. So I want to express, get out and vote. And I'm going to let everybody else speak because, you know, like I said before, I love a microphone, so I'm going to let everybody speak.
Very good. Thank you. Welcome again.
I'm Erica Dove. I am a product of Gwinnett County. I've been here since the 3rd grade. I am running for state court in Gwinnett County. I have worked in Gwinnett County for almost, 16 years. I've been a practicing attorney for 19 years. I have a plethora of experience. My platform is integrity, impartiality, and fairness.
Excellent.
So those are my platform words, and I'd like to discuss my background and everything once we get into things.
Very good. Thank you very much, and welcome, Erica.
Thank you.
And I am Karen Scott Green. I'm an attorney. I'm running for Superior Court judge, as was stated before. But more importantly, I am a mom. I'm a wife. I've lived in Gwinnett for 19 years now. And my children have been in the school system and are in the school system. And my concern is for the youth. And one of the reasons that I'm running is because I have been working in the juvenile court system for quite some time and also doing special education law. And one of the things that has troubled me is seeing young people going from the juvenile justice system to the adult system. And sometimes they're still youthful offenders, and the adult system was not meant for them. And so as a Superior Court judge, when I'm sitting, those cases that can go back to the juvenile court system, I will do that. And that's what I'm running on, because I want to see our young people, if they are youthful offenders, be dealt with in the juvenile court system that has the services and the programs that were meant for them.
Very good. Thank you. And again, welcome to each of you. We appreciate you being here tonight to share just out of your hearts and your desires for Gwinnett County. So if you don't mind, Attorney Green, I'm going to ask you a question relative to the youth that you just spoke about. What do parents do for unruly children that have to come before the bench?
So in the juvenile justice system?
Yes.
So when you bring your children, you file a complaint in juvenile court, there are services that can help the family, because it's not just the child that has the issue. Oftentimes what we see when children come before the juvenile court, it's a systemic problem. And so services can be put into the home. They actually have counseling services that can come into the home. Well, with COVID, things are virtual. But they do have counseling services. The youth doesn't have to get locked up. And so things can be put in place to help the family.
So would that be something that the judge would mandate that takes place, or is there something in the system that actually allows that? One of the things that I've experienced as a pastor is that sometimes our youth get involved in the laws or against the law in the judicial system, and it's there that they're treated the most unfairly. Is there something in place to remedy that?
And so it depends on the county. But there are programs.
I'm specifically speaking about Gwinnett County.
So in Gwinnett County, there are things that can be dealt with before it gets to a judge. And so there are diversion programs that a youth could be involved in. And so you want to try to put those services in on the front end before that child comes before the judge.
Very good, thank you. Erica, is there anything you'd like to add to that? Is that something that would come before the state court?
Juveniles don't generally come before state court. They sometimes end up in state court. A lot of issues that you have in state court that are kind of in that line is the mental health issue that we have in the county. A lot of those youth end up with mental health diagnosis, and since I've been in Gwinnett County, I've helped develop a mental health diversion program. Okay. And it's not a sentence, it's a diversion program. They have to be in it for a year and stay in treatment and all this, but they have to have a diagnosis. And a lot of times they don't have the diagnosis yet. Sometimes that develops as they grow up and they end up in the system. And so the diversion is a good thing for the youth that end up in the system. It's for adults as well, but that happens a lot in Gwinnett County.
Okay. So with you all being with the intent of running and being on the judiciary, I hear the diversion, I hear the programs. How do you stop the systemic mistreatment of youth that come into the system?
Whew, we only have an hour.
Yeah, well, yes.
It starts, I believe, with education of everyone that's involved in the juvenile system, in the court system. That's from the bailiff to the police to the teachers. Anyone that's involved with that youth needs to be re-educated on how to properly deal with issues that we see, because not everything needs to get pushed into the juvenile court system. You know, back in the day when kids would act up in school, you dealt with it at the school level. You didn't send a referral to the juvenile court. And so that's what we're seeing. And so that starts that school to prison pipeline, right?
Yes.
So if we can deal with issues at a school level, if we can deal with issues at a community level, it shouldn't even have to get to the juvenile court.
I understand.
And so with that, I think as a community, there needs to be more community-based resources. And there are community-based resources, churches and organizations that have clubs, that have youth services. They're doing the work, but we haven't connected all of the dots. And so I see a lot of different programs throughout Gwinnett, but it's not put together, it's not knitted together well, and people don't know what the resources are.
Good
Yes,
point.
I agree. There's a lot of partnerships that need to be made. They're developing though. Like the sheriff's department has created a mental health person that goes out on some of these calls and that kind of thing. But it is a partnership issue. Like some of these people need to go to treatment or to some housing, it's a homelessness issue, or we need resources for those things, and the county needs more resources for those types of things to detour them from just being in the jail.
Mr. Gatson, do we need more resources or reallocation?
Probably more resources. Let me say one other thing before I get started.
Sure.
Just, and I'll go back to that question, because a lot of the listeners or people who are watching might not know what the Solicitor General is.
Okay.
And the quickest and easiest way to answer that question is, if you are familiar with the District Attorney's Office, they prosecute felonies. The Solicitor General prosecutes misdemeanors in Gwinnett County.
Yes.
So for people who understand, 9 times out of 10, if you get into the system, you're going to probably meet with the solicitor's office. So the solicitor's office works with the state court judges. They work with the recorder's court, which is the traffic court judges. So when you talk about things like DUIs and traffic citations, you're dealing with the solicitor's office. All the way up to there is such thing as misdemeanor vehicle homicide. And then also there's misdemeanor family violence and other things like that that would go into the state court. And I thought the viewers probably need to know what the Solicitor General does.
Very good. Thank you very much. So you want to go ahead and get into the juvenile program a
In
little
the
bit?
juvenile program?
Yes.
Well, you know, and the solicitor's office doesn't really deal much with juveniles per se, but when I say resources, what I'm trying to say is I think that it takes the whole family, it takes everybody to deal with the juvenile. You know, I remember growing up saying that it takes a village, and I believe that, and I think we get away from that sometimes. You know, our neighborhoods, you see a child, you need to start learning who these children are in your neighborhood, learn who the parents are, and hopefully the parents, you can get relationships with them so that when you see something, you can tell the parent, and the parent will respectfully receive that information. Can you read to a child somewhere? You know, I mean, those are things that needs to be done to help our youth, because right now, you know, there's this, and I don't remember the stat, but our young people in the reading level in 3rd grade, if they don't get to that point right there, they're bound for failure. And we can't tolerate that. We can't accept that. We cannot accept a child being a failure.
Again, thank you very much, Mr. Gatson, for that. One of the problems I think we're having, and I see, is that our parenting has gotten younger. And maybe in the usefulness of the parenting, there's not enough wisdom or education to go along with raising a child, plus feeding that child, plus housing that child and clothing that child. There's just too much emphasis going on survival and not enough on the future of that child. So I'm going to defer. Let me go to a quick station break real quick. Again, thank you for listening to Poplar Hill Baptist Church Wednesday night panel discussion. And again, we have Erica Dove, we have Karen Green as well, but we also have joining us tonight Mr. Brian Whiteside, our solicitor, who's also running for a solicitor again for Gwinnett County, and also Mr. Travis Gatson, chief investigator. So again, thank you all for viewing with us tonight. One thing I do want to mention is that we will be celebrating our 138th church anniversary this Sunday, on the 4th Sunday, and we will have our special guest, Dr. James Hull from Tupelo, Mississippi, will be sharing in our worship experience. You want to be here to see a part of that. Thank you. So with that being said, Mr. Brian Whiteside, would you like to offer a comment about why you're running for a solicitor and what difference will it make if you win?
Well, I'm running to continue the programs I've already started. One of the main programs we started was a diversion program where someone may be arrested, but they don't have to be imprisoned. And when we first came in, the fee for diversion under the prior administration was $500. I reduced that fee to $50. And if they couldn't pay $50, it's actually free. In the diversion, you have the opportunity to take classes. Let's say you have family violence battery. It might be your first offense, or you have some type of alcohol problem. They might say you're in public intoxication. You can take a class in regard to that. And one of the reasons we did that was because classes and the fees are so expensive. With private probation, it's a money-making business, first of all. Sure. So you get a private probation company, they're charging you $80 per case. per class. And then you get someone under the old administration, and they say it's $500. So you have $500, and people don't know, you come in, there's actually surcharges also. So you might get 18% surcharge. So actually, probation is nothing but a high-interest credit card.
Sure.
So I made the point, number one, we don't want to charge these people for something. Another point we made also, and Travis was with us, we both were former deputies, and we know the probation system. It's a privatized system for money.
Sure.
And it basically, the persons that are in there are people who have historically been under the system, for 300 or 400 years, minorities. So you get people in there, and you say, okay, here's $500 surcharges. Then you have a revocation. So now you go to jail. So by us doing that, that eliminate the pipeline of going to jail. Another thing we did also, these are the programs I talk about, is I told probation, they would close all the time at 5 o'clock, 5 days a week. I said, no, you need to be open on one of the weekdays. So they stayed open, I think, on Saturday, closed on Sunday. So actually, pre-pandemic, I haven't really checked, to be honest. They're open 6 days a week during our 3-year term. And we say, why am I running? Because, to be honest, to be fair and protect our society and to do things that need to be done. We had a Confederate statue. Now, in my first year, Travis Gatson and I, we found out about the statue. There was a disturbance there. I immediately said it needed to be removed. It wasn't applicable to our values as human beings in our county. And also, it was a symbol of hate and control. They put that there in the 90s when Gwinnett County, as this wonderful church knows, became more diverse. So as soon as more minorities came, they put that as a symbol of control. I filed a lawsuit and said it basically, it was a public nuisance.
Sure.
It endangers our society because we had people from other terrorist groups, urban terrorists, who said they were going to protest that. And I also warned them that there's a federal law, you can't protest with guns, rifles.
Sure.
And sent that to Kemp. He didn't do anything. So we're continuing to make progress and change things. Another thing we've done is protect all communities. When the Asian community was threatened, I sent out a newsletter, said if they were threatened in Gwinnett County, we would recommend the appropriate punishment. And that stopped all that. When the Muslim community was threatened, I sent out the same newsletter. We handed out 2,500 news paragraphs on a sheet of paper that I typed up. And I handed out 2,500 personally. We handed almost 3,500 or 5,000. I can't say the exact one. The Muslim community was threatened with the Muslim ban. Did the same thing. Black community in Snellville was threatened with graffiti. We went out and handed out flyers there. But we also put news releases and said that these are the repercussions. No time in the history has a prosecutor tried to prevent harm. So we're actually saying we want to continue. Another thing I've done, I filed a motion to stop voter suppression recently, to stop the water ban. That's in the Federal Northern District Court. Came back today, I'm a little bit late. I modified that and asked that they not be able to control the election boards because local officials, such as commissioners, they have the right to do that by the Georgia Constitution.
Sure.
So all those things that we're talking about is basically a lack of oppression, constitutional guidelines, and treating people fairly. That's what we do. So that's why I'm asking to be reelected, because we've done things that should have been done 30 years ago. Why are minorities threatened without us taking action first? Why is there a Confederate monument there that doesn't represent this country? It's unconventional to have a symbol of hate. So that's it, sir.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
If we could take a step back, I had a question for the two ladies. Both of you mentioned programs, the diversion program and the mental health program. How do citizens go about learning of these programs and using them?
So with, if you're talking about programs that are in the juvenile court system, those you can find out from the court itself. So there's a court administrator, there are people who work there in the court who'd be able to inform you about the different services. And some of these counseling services are also available in the community at the schools. So I know that they're pushing counseling into the schools where you don't have to actually go to a therapist's office. So some things are community-based as well. So you don't have to actually go to the court to get the services, but that is where some of the services are.
And it used to be listed on the website, the county website, under the solicitor's office for the mental health diversion. But if it's, and I haven't checked it recently, so I'm not as sure if it's still there, but most of the time, if you talk to the prosecutor that's assigned to your case and tell them there's an issue going on, or there's some kind of indication that, based in the report or anything like that, that there is something going on, there's a process you go through. You contact the prosecutor, they'll tell you to contact Viewpoint, schedule an evaluation. There's a whole process to go to. They have to make sure there's a diagnosis and there's a need, and that you're competent to understand the program itself. But most of it's communication with the prosecutor.
And to piggyback on what Erica was saying, Viewpoint is a community-based health organization. And so they will provide mental health services. And so you don't have to have a case in court to be able to go through Viewpoint. So I wanted to make sure that that's known. But it is community-based, and I believe it's based upon a sliding scale. Because they receive funds from the federal government, they receive funds from our tax dollars, so anyone can call up to Viewpoint to get mental health services. And they will take people on, they'll also take people as walk-ins if necessary, or you can make an appointment, but the community services are there. We just need to do a better job in getting that information out.
Can I put a big word in the middle of that?
Yes.
Disenfranchisement. We have not been allowed, have not been educated, we have not been told that these services are available until we run afoul of the legal system. And then everything except the kitchen sink is thrown at us. And then no diversion is offered. Can you all speak to that? What difference will you make as solicitor, as a judge, state court superior, or even as an investigator? What differences can you make for our community?
Let me speak on that.
Sure.
I recently formed a group. It's called 316 Gwinnett United Nations. And this church has been invited. You'll be invited soon. Sure. We have, I believe it's October 13th. We're going to have almost 40 to 50 countries come in to Gwinnett County in the auditorium. And what the point of the group that we made, and Travis Gatson is part of that also, is to reach out to the public and see what the needs are, but to also express the fact that these issues and these programs are available in regard to that. Now, when you say Viewpoint, are we talking about the one in Lawrenceville?
It's in there's a
several
Viewpoint.
places.
Yeah, there's several
right
places.
down on 540.
Yeah, there's several places. And
Right.
Viewpoint is also in like Newton County.
DeKalb, they have a DeKalb office
Right.
as well.
Okay,
So-
you all are moving away from, what is Viewpoint
But the point
now? You
was
help us with what is Viewpoint?
So
Well,
Viewpoint
it's a mental health agency that helps people, and we're contacting them also. But what we're trying to say is that we're reaching out to tell people these things are available. Okay. Another thing we did, there was notice from the magistrate court that there was money available for housing to keep you in your home, right? I actually went out to Walmart. We spoke to Walmart, and they gave us permission to hand out flyers. Now, we personally handed out flyers at the solicitor's office. And what happened, it rained one day. We didn't do it that one day, but we went out there hand to hand myself, especially after work, and handed these things out. So we're doing things more progressive to inform people. But the whole thing about 316 is that it's a preventive agency where you can bring these issues and programs, and also we're piggybacking with the Gwinnett County Library. And one of the important things, like Travis said, the statistic is also actually, if your child is not literate by the time your child is 4 years old, your chance of not graduating from a Gwinnett County school is 85%. If you're not literate, because at 4th grade, when we talk about that, Travis picked that, you're doing pre-algebra in Gwinnett County, okay? You're doing arithmetic and you're doing advanced English. So in Gwinnett, you need to be literate. That means reading, writing, and things. So we're bringing, actually, we asked the library to be part of it, but then they specially requested that they wanted to be part of 316. We had an email from the library said, we like what you're doing. So now we have the library coming in. So these are the type of things we talk about disenfranchisement, franchisement. Well, I understand that. So now we are a franchise where we're reaching out to people with education and prevention. Also spoke to a group about aviation. Let people look at that today. So the whole point we're talking about the whole village that Travis talked about. When you want to be traditional is prosecuting people.
Yes.
Which we can do that too, but we also reach out to educate people also, because Travis and I started 30 years ago trying to do these programs, and finally we got elected, and we've got Patsy, and we're trying to reach out to be non-conventional. Okay, we can do this now. Your child will not be in jail. And we also, another point is, if you're not literate by the time you're 4 years old, you've got a 90% chance of going to jail.
That's a resounding theme. One of the things that I think is important, though, is that if you have the budget, is it possible to do more PSAs rather than passing out flyers at Walmart and places like that? And I know you probably have specific areas that you are targeting, but my concern is that there are so many people that we miss because it's not broadcast on a larger scale versus being at Walmart or at a neighborhood flea market or something.
Listen, Gwinnett County just got a lot of money through the CARES Act, so there's money to do a lot of things.
Well, the candidate Green, I hear that, but when I apply for the money, I can't find any. There's just a whole lot of bureaucracy that blocks us from getting the resources to where it really needs to be.
And a good point about the CARES Act is you look at it, it's really set up not for black businesses. It's almost set up that you have to do $500,000.
Sure.
$500,000 income to get that. So what you do is, what we did, you are uniting with the Asian community, the Muslim community, and all communities to bring this 316 together, so you have those joint races of all colors and creeds, and you can reach out and have businesses supply this money for people.
Sure.
So that's another thing we're doing, unconventional, to try to actually help people. And really, you have to educate these children because, like you said, people they've been getting younger since the 70s. Now, since the 1970s, the black family structure is broken down. So we have to look at, and this is what we tried to do 30 years ago, but we never got any help. And so that's why we ran for office. Number one is to get education in place, first of all. Make your children literate. See what the future is. And that gives them another future. Another thing we do in the solicitor's office, first thing I tell our attorneys, because I was an attorney, I say, ask that person, do they have a GED or high school diploma? You'll be surprised, almost 80% of people come, I don't have a GED. I say, it's mandatory that you finish this program with a high school or GED. Then there's no recidivism. There's almost 99% to 95% of those people do not come back in.
Sure.
Once you get that GED or high school diploma, it opens all sort of avenues. So that's why I run for Solicitor General, because number one, I'm trying to educate our people, protect our people, and we've got pending motions in the Northern District Court right down in Gainesville. I'm going to have a court date, and I'm going to win. We're going to beat them. We're going to be able to have water if I get to court in time. Number two, they're not going to be able to take over these election boards because local officials only have that power. That's in the Georgia Constitution, and it's in Supreme Court law. So we're basing it on the constitutional concepts. That's why I run.
Thank you very much. Candidates, what do you think is most important, the water or just the mere fact of getting out voting?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
The water or getting out to vote?
Getting out to vote.
And education.
Getting out to vote and education.
Sure.
And we need to do a better job at letting people know, like, what the issues are. What are we running on? Why are we running? And how does it impact you?
Sure.
You know, I've been, even though I'm not running in a municipal race, I've been telling people about municipal races this year, because you want to know, like, what impacts you. Who's running for your city council? Who's running for your, who's running for your mayor? That directly impacts you. So we as a community need to do a better job about informing people about what the issues are and why people are running.
Very good.
When you talk about, though, it's obvious that voting is more important.
Sure.
But the idea of trying to make it as uncomfortable as possible to vote is a problem. And you see that right now in several states, including Georgia, when there was no voter suppression, no issues going on, but they come up with these rules and regulations to try to suppress the vote. And that's what the issue is with water. You had these super long lines, and now if someone wants to hand somebody some water, they're actually in violation, could be cited, get a citation, get a ticket, you know, and things like that. And then that goes into the court systems and so forth like that. So that's what I think when you start looking at the water avenue about, I was catching you.
But I think in the meantime, because litigation takes a while, right?
Yes.
So in the meantime, we tell people, okay, these are the rules. This is how we work within the rules.
Yes.
So they want to change the rules of the game. We learn how to play that game.
Yes.
Because they're playing checkers. They're playing chess, right? We got to learn how to play chess, not checkers.
Absolutely.
I agree. I think the local politics are what people, our community, doesn't focus on. They vote for the president,
Absolutely.
and they don't think about their local community, as she was saying earlier, the city council, the mayors, those kind of people. And that's what we need to get people involved in. They need to know who's sitting on the bench. If they get in trouble, who's going to be on the bench?
Yes.
And what's their background? And what is their interest? Do they have an interest in me? You know?
You know, one of the problems I have with the magistrates and even elected officials that you don't see them until voting time comes around again. Can you all speak to that? How would you address your constituents once you are elected?
Well,
For the community's good.
For me, I've been in Gwinnett for 19 years. I've been a soccer coach. I've been a Cub Scout leader. I've been involved in my children's ministry. I've been involved in the nursery. So I've been involved in Gwinnett County, and I will continue to be involved in Gwinnett County even when I sit on the bench. So that part does not change, and people do need to know who their judges are and see us out doing things in the community, see us out in churches, see us out in our, if you're part of a Divine Nine organization, they need to see us out there. And I've been doing that, and I will continue to do that once I'm on the bench.
I agree.
Thank you.
I've actually been involved in several mentor programs for youth, and that have nothing to do with what I do as a practice. Like just being out in the community is the important part, to see that you're humans. And I think that representation matters. And Gwinnett being a minority county, they want to see that you look like me and that you understand a lot of where I've come from and what the struggles I have to get to where I need to be. So I think that it's important to just be out and about and speaking to the community on a regular, and I don't think that changes as an elected official.
Very good.
I think it's funny that you said that, and everyone was talking about the local elections. They're so critical, and the other day we went to an event, and my wife got a chance to speak at the event, and then she came down and sat down, and then the lady behind her said, "I voted for you, but I thought I'd never get a chance to meet you," right? And they hugged and everything. You will get an opportunity to meet the people in the local elections. You'll get an opportunity to meet the judges, the solicitor generals, the city councilmen, the county commissioners, all those type of people, because they have children in the school system. You'll see them at different places. Unlike, it'll be hard for you to run across the president of the United States, even the governor or these different ones. But the local ones, you get the opportunity to see them as long as they're willing to step out.
That's true.
Exactly.
And I think we make a good point, Erica made it, Ms. Green made it, that, they're out here in the community, and a lot of times you don't see judges out in the community. And there's certain things they can speak on, but I've been here over 30 years, and a lot of times they don't speak on these issues. And your local elections are very important. We have Marlene Crawford. She's running for Lawrenceville City Council. Recently, like we keep talking about Gwinnett 316 United, we met and we spoke to a number of people from different races, colors, and religions. And our whole thing, when we spoke to them, is run for office. If you want change, you need to run for office. Recently, one of the people we talked to, Yo Min, she is Vietnamese and black. She basically is now on the city council of Lilburn, and she was a member of 316. And they said, how can you change things? I said, you need to run for office. And if nothing's going to change in this country, as our elected, well, our judge candidates said, and Travis said, like Erica said, and Ms. Green said, until you run for office.
Can you speak more about, Brian, about the understanding that every vote counts? Can you give me an example where you know that a vote counted? Because there are two things that I fear that our people don't do well. First of all, they don't understand the value of the one vote. Number two is they sometimes think that the issues and the things that they need to be concerned with and about are too far above their heads to discuss them and to ask for them.
Let me give you an example.
Sure.
Number one, in Lawrenceville and in local elections, people win mayor or win council by 160 or 170 votes.
Yes.
Now, I think in Lawrenceville, in the last council election, over 700 or 7,000 people could vote, I believe it was, and only 170 people voted.
Yes.
And we did not get a minority council person. Hopefully that'll change. See, the whole point that comes to be is, when people talk about Black Lives Matter and people stopping people and harming black people or minorities, I used to be an attorney. People would stop Muslim people because they thought they were Mexican. Nothing's going to change until you elect local mayors. Local mayors they appoint police chiefs. So you shouldn't have a chief say, well, we're going to take a class. We're going to take a class on diversity.
Sure.
Travis, I appointed Travis. He is the first police chief in 244 years. Let's make it clear. He was the first ever to head a agency. Now, it took 244 years in Gwinnett for it to have a head police chief. So the whole point about it, we don't have a problem with brutality or diversity and issues. Recently, Travis Gatson, due to his experience, he selected a specific investigator. That investigator recently found that someone had not been battered, but a possible sexual assault.
Sure.
And the point about that, I spoke to that investigator, and you say, you know, this is important to me. A lot of minorities, when you're not faced with someone of your own kind, you don't get that type of care. Mm-hmm. People don't think you are important. You're minimized. They went beyond and above and found out it wasn't a misdemeanor, it was a felony. And what do you do then? You walk it up to our great district attorney, Patsy Austin Gatson, and that young lady, she was treated well. So every vote counts because, number one, you want the mayors to reflect our attitude. That's why we took down the monument and we talk about the water thing. People have to realize you can actually be arrested for that. Mm-hmm. And that's unconstitutional. So the whole point about that, you never let them get away with anything unconstitutional because then it warps into now we're going to take your election board. So you got to stop them at the border.
Sure.
Everything counts with these Republicans to take away your right to vote. So every vote does count, and it's very good and refreshing to see our candidates here, out here telling people because, number one, we need judges to be more active. Right now in Gwinnett County, we don't have a mask mandate in the courthouse. Okay, and it's a replicating virus. Mm-hmm. So my point is, we need someone to say, minorities are the ones that are dying from this. They can't buy hundreds of masks. They have to rewash them. That's not really recommended. So we need people to look at, okay, most of the people who come in the courthouse are minorities. They're subject to more disease than anyone else. So we need people to say, hey, you know, I'm going to take a pause and protect these people. So that's why we need more diversity, because they can relate to what other people have gone through.
Sure.
Can I just say,
Yes, please.
in response to your original question,
Yes.
Ferguson, the city of Ferguson is a prime example of why every vote matters. Ferguson, prior to the riots, right, prior to the uprising, had, even though it was a majority black city, had an all-white city council. And they were displeased with their police chief. So once people started realizing, oh, we could run. We're in the majority. They ran. They flipped the city council. They flipped the city council, you changed the police chief. So that's a prime example of why your every vote counts. As we've been on this campaign trail, I've been meeting municipal candidates and folks who are running who are telling me that they've run before and they lost by like 50 votes or they lost by 100 votes. Sure. You know, that's just a couple more doors you could have knocked on to get people and let them know that, hey, come out and vote on this Tuesday. So I think Ferguson is a great example.
Very
Well,
good. Thank you.
and I think that it's not just youth that don't understand that their vote don't count.
True.
I've talked to a police officer recently, like he knows the county. He works here, he lives here. He felt like until recently that his vote really didn't matter. I mean, it's not just a youth thing. It's a human thing. It's a community thing. We just need to make sure that focus on the community and focus on the fact that local elections really make a difference in your everyday life.
Travis, do you think there are too many laws on the books?
Too many laws.
Too many laws. Here's the point, judges. I'm going to ask you, how do you determine, and I know the system actually determines what's important and what's not based on the cases that are brought to you, but how many laws do you have to sift through in order to get to the truth that responds to an individual's true need?
There is too many laws.
There's too many laws.
There's too many, and a lot of them, especially when you start dealing with traffic, is just a pullover reason.
Yes.
You know, and yeah, there's too many.
Very
I
good.
believe, I could be wrong, but I think spitting on the sidewalk is probably still in the law books. And,
Unless it's your sidewalk.
yeah.
Well, it is, but you
Exactly.
can't even use strong language around women,
Yeah.
particularly if you're in the city of Atlanta. I mean, the law's still on the books.
Yeah.
You cannot curse in front of women on the streets of Atlanta.
Yeah, well, we won't get the opportunity to charge people, so by the time the case would come to us, they've already been charged.
Sure.
That would be Mr. Whiteside.
But-
and his wife.
Yes.
As judges, if the facts don't warrant the charge, we have the opportunity to do something about that. If it's a non-jury trial, you can,
How much discretion?
You still have to follow the law.
you still have to follow the law. You still have to follow the law.
Okay, all right.
You still have to follow the law.
Okay.
But if for instance, if it's a non-jury trial and it's before the judge and the facts don't warrant the charge, I mean, that person's going to be acquitted of that charge. So, but yeah, that's up to the solicitor and the DA about what gets charged.
Very good.
We never charge anybody wrongfully.
Well, listen, that would be a great change of pace, okay?
Well, according to all of my clients that I've represented, they've never done it.
They never did it, that's right.
We'll take care of you tomorrow.
I guess take a step back, change directions a little bit. Can I ask what each of you do day to day, just a day-to-day description of your job, basically?
I didn't hear the question.
What do you do
Day-to-day.
from day to day? What do you do on your job?
I am currently a defense attorney. I have my own practice. I work with the indigent defense list. I am also a prosecutor in some municipal courts. I have many hats. That's my day-to-day. I could be a prosecutor at a city court in the morning and representing my clients, some of them on the indigent defense list in the evening. In the afternoon.
So you wear two hats.
I do.
And you work both sides of the fence.
I actually do.
Does that give your clients pause?
Generally, no, because I work my client's case how I can work their case. I'm still trying to get the best for them. And I explain to them what I do. They know. I won't represent them if they have a case like I work in Lilburn. I won't take a case that's from that city. So I don't want the appearance of any kind of anything.
Sure.
So if I've had a client recently that I had to, I work in Norcross as well, and I had to come off of his case because I discovered it was a Norcross case. And he was like, but you already know my case. And I was like, but I can't,
Sure.
And he's like, sure you can. And I'm like, I had to go back and forth with him because he felt so comfortable with me and that I was representing him the way that he wanted to be represented. But I couldn't because that's a conflict for me.
Very good. Karen.
And so what I do on a day-to-day basis is I represent parents and I represent children that are involved in the juvenile justice system and also independency cases. So if DFACS is involved in your life and you have to go to court in front of a juvenile judge, I represent the parent, and there are times when I represent the children. And also if children are charged with delinquency cases, I will represent them as well. And also I do special education law. So if a family needs an IEP or a 504 plan, so if they need an IEP is an individual education plan. If your child needs help in the classroom, I help you fight for your child to get them an individualized education plan so that they can get the resources that they need to be able to learn. And if they have medical issues, they have to have what's called a 504 plan so that they can have accommodations. So for instance, if your child had a wheelchair and they needed to be able to have access to certain things in school, I would help a family do that. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. And then my nighttime job is that I have 2 teenagers at home. That's my other full-time job.
Big question, do they want you to be a judge?
You know what? They are 17 and 15, and they are so nonplussed by anything that I'm doing. They're just like, whatever, Mom. Okay. Yeah, they're over me.
Travis, what do you do during the day?
Okay. Well, I'm the chief investigator, and what happens a lot is that when an incident occurs, let's say the police officer makes an arrest or so forth, it's not done right then. Once it gets over to our office, we do an investigation. We're the first line there to see if there is even enough evidence for it to even go even further. So that means we're looking at videos, body cameras, we read reports, we do all that. We go out and talk to witnesses and everything and put all that packet together, and then we make the recommendation to the attorney of whether they need to go forward with the case or not. And with a lot of times they deal with our recommendation because we have everything with it. So we are post-certified police officers with arrest powers. So we can do anything that a local law enforcement officer can do. We can do it. So we basically continue the investigation, make sure it's ready for prosecution.
Very good, thank you. Brian.
Well, usually I'm trying to watch what Travis is doing. That's what I try to do. But the whole point about what my job does, or what I do, I try to manage or work with the attorneys mostly to see what's going on, and our investigators to see what actually should be prosecuted, what shouldn't be prosecuted. And unlike a lot of solicitors, I'm not in the office all the time. Sometime I'll tell Travis, well, let's go ahead and ride. We'll ride around the county, look at things. We recently, over a year ago, we looked at some of the extended stay hotels. And we looked at some of the conditions, and they were deplorable. And we look around and see, is there trash on the ground? Is Waste Pro or other companies picking them up? We found a problem was with the extended stay hotels. Number one, they didn't have adequate security, and our children and single mothers and single parents were actually in danger. We took action against that, where we basically called the hotels into court and spoke to them about the repercussions of that. So basically, my day is sort of unconventional. I spend a lot of time with what you call gun cases. People don't realize that actually on the misdemeanors, we have reckless conduct, where people are actually firing guns out into the community at lakes, at ducks, at animals. So I make the recommendations on that. Prior to me coming in, the basic thing was if you fired a gun, well, just go ahead, do probation, or diversion. But I said it's according to somebody's record. If you fired a gun 2 or 3 times, it might refer it for a felony, because we have people actually firing guns that are going through apartments, missing children. We've had at least 4 incidents in the last month where children were almost killed. So we do a lot of unconventional things where I say my job, I spend a lot of time not in the office because you have to go to talk to diverse groups, find out what they need, and you do a lot of prevention. You have some people who basically have been assaulted by someone. They don't feel comfortable. You might go out there and talk to them because they ask for you specifically. And sometimes we'll reach out to some of our people in the Muslim community, Asian community, Hispanic community, and they'll go with us. So we do a lot of things, not just sitting in the office, but it's really trying to serve the community. And I think we've done a good job by making extended stays safer. And in the future, we're going to be probably taking action against one or two because they've had a number of aggravated assaults and endangering people in the community. So we'll be speaking to them that we want our citizens treated better in this county.
Very good, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And then also, can I ask, should you be reelected or should you ladies be elected, what would it mean to me as a youth in Gwinnett County?
Oh, well, I guess you start with me. I guess for the youth of Gwinnett County, I guess it'll be a better path to education. Number one, my whole point is to start with education. My mom and dad were teachers. They taught for 45 years, my dad in Gary, Indiana, my mom for 40 years. The point is, I think the youth, number one, you'll have more access to education. Things will be free. One of the things I try to emphasize is the SAT. You need to start doing that in the 4th and 5th grade, start studying for that. And let's say there's private organizations, you'll pay $1,500 to $2,500 to prep for a SAT. Working with the library, hopefully we can get these things done for free. Another thing is studying. My son got out of school with a 3.9 grade average because I could afford to put him in study groups that were private each and every time. These study groups had tests for over the years at Parkview that had been taken by other students, and you have them in files. They would study those tests, and then they would succeed on the new tests. Because little people know, teachers that are there for 10 years, they might put one question different on a test that they've been given for 10 years. So we want to provide the things that you have to pay for, that you have study groups, you have test preparation. We teach you how to study so you can get to that college that you want. And also behavioral skills, conflict management. You go into a store, somebody steps on your foot. Hey, that's okay. Get out there without shooting somebody. Those things. We're trying to do life skills also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and so for me, if you were coming before me, I would want to make a commitment that if you are a youthful offender, meaning under the age of 18, that you're not before me in Superior Court. For certain types of crimes, not all crimes, but for certain types of crimes, it could be sent back over to juvenile court, as I was mentioning earlier. And then also, if you do happen to be before me and you're over the age of 18, there's a program that I'd like to model that Judge Asha Jackson has implemented called Project Pinnacle in DeKalb County. And I'd like to do something similar to that in Gwinnett. And it's very similar to what Ryan was speaking about. So it's a program where you have community buy-in. And so you have mentors and you have instructors who will help young people get GEDs, who will get technical. It's a one-year program to help them get a technical certification. And so that they can earn some life skills, right? And it's different than diversion because diversion costs money, and a lot of people don't know that. And when I was doing criminal law, I would always tell my young people, don't do it because it's a trap. Because it costs money to get in it, and you gotta have money to stay in it. And oftentimes, if you are a young person, they don't have the resources, and they're just thinking about that they don't wanna go to jail, so they do diversion. So I'd like to model this program called Project Pinnacle to keep young people out of this cycle. And what Judge Asha Jackson in DeKalb has said is that she doesn't see these young people come back before her. So it's very similar to your program. They're getting an education, they're getting some life skills, and they're also making ties and connections in the community.
And as a state court, you don't usually get the juveniles. You get 17 and above, and in Georgia, 17 qualifies as an adult. You go to big boy jail, it's real. What you get from me is somebody who has some perspective. I've worked with troubled youth. I've also worked with high school youth, who are on their way to college. From for years, at least 10, I've been working with troubled youth, and I get it. Sometimes it's not just the young black male, it's the whole family unit. So you get perspective, and you kind of figure out, well, okay, so this is not just he stole something. This is, he don't have anything to eat, so he needed to get something to eat. So you get perspective that way. It's not, as adults, you hope that you can sometimes sway people into the diversion programs, which they've lowered the prices and everything on that. But that's kind of the big hope, because that's the way you keep your record clean, and maybe you can get a job in the future if your record is clean. If you get a fresh start, that helps you get perspective and, okay, well, this real, they're gonna take me to jail if I steal some food. It gives you perspective, or maybe I got a second bite at this and I can get it right.
I want to add something. Also, I presented a bill to Sheikh Rahman. I'm working on him to raise the age. How old are you?
20 years old.
Okay, you're 20, so at 17, I believe you're an adult. You could be arrested. I've asked that the bill go to 18. So you can't be adjudicated at 17 as a juvenile, as an adult. So we've asked that they raise that
There's
age
actually
up.
a bill that was in the Georgia legislature in the 2021 year. It may be going over to the next.
Yeah, it may, but
Term.
mine's a little bit more modified, of course, and it's better.
The 17-year-old thing is tricky as well, because in schools, if there's a behavior issue, there could be one person that's 16, another person that's 17. 16-year-old's going to the juvenile system, the 17-year-old is going to big boy jail. And they could be in the 10th grade. Both of them could be in the 10th grade, looking at each other in class, next to each other. But it's different depending on that trigger of 17 years old.
Well, you know, I just want to say something real quick. This county is really getting ready to change. If you look at what's happening right now, you got your Solicitor General, you got your District Attorney, you got Sheriff Kebo Taylor, and now we got a new Chief, McClure, who's come in. These are changes that are going to happen. When we're talking about law enforcement now, we're looking at an avenue where people can come and talk to these people, and maybe we can work on things before something like Ferguson happens. You know, and with these Democrats in position, and I believe are willing to talk. Now, I'm not going to call what Chief McClure is. He's been appointed, so I'm not saying that. But he's a minority, and I've worked with him for years. And he's a very dedicated person. I really am very happy with his appointment. And with everyone else, this county has the strong possibility of changing.
It has changed already.
Yes.
30 seconds, your final statement. Candidates?
Ladies?
Well, for my final statement, I'd like to say that my 27 years of experience has been in criminal and in civil matters, and I believe that I have the right temperament to be a fair and impartial judge sitting on the bench.
I have a great background. I have 19 years. I'm a little less than her. And I have had civil practice. I was a prosecutor for 10 years. I've had my own practice for 6 years. I've worked on the indigent defense list, working for people in poverty who can't afford to pay for their own attorneys. I have a wealth of experience. I helped create the Veterans Court that we have in place now. I helped create the mental health diversion that they use in the prosecutor's office now. I've got a lot of experience. I'd hope for some consideration and win people's votes over.
Very good, thank you. Brian?
Well, I can only just summate everything and say, well, look what I said, look what I've done. We've done a great deal of change. I worked with Mr. McClure, the chief. I've worked with Travis. All those things add up. I've built a lot of relationships over the years. I've taken preventive action. I've filed bills to protect the county. And I've made a significant change, and I brought people along the way with me. I haven't been selfish. I asked Patsy, the best thing I ever did in my life was ask Patsy Austin Gatson to run for district attorney, and I think the second thing was to marry Travis. You know, she married Travis. That's a great thing.
Get that right now.
Yeah. But, you know, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity.
Certainly.
He introduced Patsy.
It sounds like it.
Real quick, you are viewing this program and you've never been to Poplar Hill Church, I invite you to come. You'll be very welcomed. They'll love on you. Come here, visit this church, get loved on, and hear the word, and come out another person. Thank you.
CJ, you'd like to add any comments? Very good. Thank you. Well, listen, thank you all for viewing us. We are, again, Poplar Hill Baptist Church. We are a Christ-centered church where love is the greatest, and we try to demonstrate that day by day, week by week, and every Sunday morning. In addition to that, we are celebrating 138 years here in the city of Beaufort. We do want you to come by and visit with us and plan to make this your home. We are, again, Poplar Hill Baptist Church, a Christ-centered church where love is the greatest. Thank you, candidates, for being here with us tonight, sharing your ideas and your futuristic goals, and certainly the involvement you have for our community. We just bless you now for your election and all that's going to take place in the future. God bless you. God keep you is our desire.
Thank
you for having us.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank y'all so much.